The clock goes red. They've done it. Munster have beaten Leinster at the Aviva Stadium. And that was a game for the ages. O'Gara once more tries to launch Munster, but O'Driscoll has slipped in to intercept, and I think he's going to make it all on his own. O'Gara chases, but chases in vain, and O'Driscoll gets Leinster's third try. What an effort from Brian O'Driscoll.
Where does Leinster versus Munster rank in the great club sporting rivalries? I'm going to park international sport for this particular conversation. Leinster versus Munster, you can definitely make an argument that this is the biggest rivalry in rugby, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But first off, where does it rank in the club sporting rivalries, any sport? One thing is for certain, it is the biggest game of rugby union that is happening this weekend. I'm going to be all over it on the channel. Let me know your thoughts in the chat down below. Give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and get stuck in with the conversation. Firstly, about, like I say, club level sport around the world, because you think of football straight away and you think Real Madrid against Barcelona. I live in Manchester, and United v Liverpool is pretty spicy, but Rangers v Celtic takes on whole other levels. And then you got Fenerbahce, Galatasaray, River Plate v Boca Juniors. There are some fierce rivalries in football. American football, Packers v the Bears, Giants v the Cowboys are a couple of big ones. Obviously, I'm not even getting into the college ones, which you could include here as well. The Lakers v Celtics in basketball. New South Wales v Queensland in the state of origin in rugby league. St Helens v Wigan. There are Red Sox v Yankees in baseball. These are all incredible. And the reason these really matter is the same reason it really matters when Leinster play against Munster. It's personal. There's close proximity. Bragging rights matter. The subtext to the Leinster v Munster game as well is it's got that kind of, well, there's a lot of rivalries like the Stormers v the Bulls. Let's move it on to rugby specifically. Stormers v Bulls is one of the big ones. In that era where South Africa weren't able to play international rugby, the Currie Cup and those internal rivalries helped keep the quality of rugby, and it's what everyone focused in on. And Stormers v Bulls has a kind of north-south, city v country, working class v kind of middle class kind of thing going on. And I definitely think that maps on to Leinster v Munster. You've got the kind of city slickers in Dublin against the salt of the earth in Munster. And it's only intensified by the fact that there is a kind of sense of injustice. Like, I'm in Manchester, and people in the north think that our politicians and our media and the country in general, all the people in charge, just focus on London and don't pay any attention to the cities in the north. I think there's definitely a bit of that at play with Munster, feeling like they're being overlooked and in the shadow of the big brother in Dublin. And that just adds to the spice, doesn't it? You've got rivalries in the past like Sexton and O'Gara, and now that is manifested itself with Crowley against Prendergast. I'll come on to the teams in a minute. But one of the reasons I think you could make the argument for Leinster against Munster and other great rugby rivalries, you've got loads of inter-schools in South Africa, Pyle Gym versus Pyle Boys High. In New Zealand, Crusaders against the Blues, or Canterbury against Auckland, as it would have been. Leicester v Northampton. Now, because I bought the rights to French Pro D2 rugby on my other channel, FI UK. Let me tell you, I cannot wait to broadcast Dax versus Mont de Marsan. That rivalry is wild. As is, hopefully they get in the league together at some point again, Bayonne versus Biarritz. That might be the most fiercely fought rivalry in rugby, but this one dates back nearly 150 years. The very first Leinster versus Munster game was in 1879, and since then it has been a battle royale, and quite often it is the premier interpro competition within Ireland, and it is right now as well, although hopefully Ulster are on the up. 4 in a row for Leinster. They've won 8 out of the last 10, but that semi-final in the URC in Dublin will still hurt. There's even been a 0-0 in the history of this fixture in 1953. As for this incarnation in 2025, it is a pretty frightening Leinster team that are taken to the field. No Caelan Doris yet, who has been named in the Ireland squad, but there are 7 British and Irish Lions who are making their first appearance of the season, and a bunch of them in that pack. A pretty frightening pack, and it only gets just as intimidating if you're a Munster fan when you look at the back line with Gibson Park and Prendergast, the halfbacks. Harry Byrne out injured. He played really, really well last week. But James Lowe, Gary Ringrose, Jamie Osborne, Tommy O'Brien back in. So Jamie Osborne possibly trying to put his hand up for that fullback slot for Ireland. He'll probably be favourite to take over from Hugo Keenan, who's going to be injured in the month of November. But look at the bench. Doesn't get any easier there. Dan Sheehan, Andrew Porter, Thomas Clarkson is a cheat code. That is outrageous. And then when you look over to Munster, and we can talk about the names that are on the team sheet, but maybe the biggest news is the players that aren't there. No Craig Casey is massive for Munster. Such a shame. So important. And obviously the first proper season without Conor Murray now. Craig Casey looking to, go up against his international opponent for the 9 jersey for Ireland. He's not able to. So no Craig Casey. Thomas Ahern has a HIA, I believe. Edwin Adogbo, there photographed. He gets his first start since December, and he's a big old unit. A lot is expected of him. He's in the wider training Ireland squad, going to be with the squad for experience rather than to actually play. But there's a few players that I think might be playing angry. You think Tom Farrell will be sat in the midfield for Munster thinking, what more have I got to do? And that sense of kind of injustice and being overlooked is going to be there. I think the reality is, in most cases, the Munster players are not quite as good as their Leinster opponent. However, in key positions, they've got really, really, really influential players. Jack Crowley and Tadhg Byrne, the captain, being a couple of them. And they're going to have to look to those guys. Tadhg Byrne is going to have to play out of his skin, and Jack Crowley is going to just have to boss it. But I think they're going to try and disrupt Leinster, play angry. I'm not sure they have the top end quality to do the business. And when you think about Sheehan and Porter off the bench, it's mad. But this is a really special game. It's one to be savoured, one to be watched, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing Saturday evening. And as soon as the full-time whistle blows, I'll be here, just like I am for the big international games and the big club games. This is one of those. I will be immediately responding to the game after it, because this is as big as it gets this weekend. I cannot wait. Bring it on. Let me know what you think. I'll see you on the next video.